You are listening to an interview with clinical hypnotherapist Dr. Steve G. Jones. For a free hypnosis download, please visit stevegjones.com.
Dr. Steve has a doctorate in education, and he studied psychology at Harvard. He is the author of over 22 books on hypnotherapy, and he's created thousands of self-help recordings that help people achieve health and their desired lifestyle. Welcome, Dr. Steve. I'm so happy to be talking with you today.
Well, thanks, Nicole. Good to be here.
Great. So I know that hypnotherapy is a powerful tool for shifting mindsets, changing habits, among other things. But others may have some misconceptions. Can you just sort of as a level set talk a little bit about hypnotherapy, how it works?
Sure. Hypnotherapy, it's just a matter of reprogramming the subconscious mind. So we all do things and we don't realize exactly why we do them, why we drive the same cars, wear the same types of clothes, have the same types of hairdos, and follow these trends. But a lot of it's because of our subconscious programming. We're very influenced by society and by our upbringing. And these are forces that are constantly at work with us and sometimes against us, because sometimes we have ideas that are old and need to go because we have new ideas about what we can be. So hypnosis, hypnotherapy, these things just are designed to get into the subconscious mind to help us reprogram our lives.
That's great. And how can people use it on themselves or in their own life?
Well, hypnosis can be used on yourself by using self-hypnosis. You can make a recording for yourself if you'd like, and that will, of course, help your own life as well. The topics that hypnosis would be good for would be anything in which the subconscious mind is involved. So that covers a lot of territory: overcoming fears, gaining new habits, letting go of destructive habits, gaining new beliefs about ourselves, those types of things.
Nice. And what are some of the different roles of a hypnotherapist in helping people gain those new habits or letting go of old ones and all of those things that you just covered?
Well, the hypnotherapist, the main role would be as facilitator, helping the person reach into the power that they have in their subconscious mind that they weren't aware of.
And can you talk a little bit about the how that's done?
How hypnosis works?
Right.
Well, hypnosis is just a relaxed state of mind, like when you're riding a bike or watching TV, or when you're just waking up or just going to sleep. You're not really out of it, so to speak, and you're not really wide awake either. A lot of people go through their lives thinking they're wide awake in the daytime and they're asleep at nighttime, but turns out we go into various stages of being awake, and one of those stages is alpha, the lightest stage of hypnosis, which we can go into when we're just spacing out or daydreaming, when we're driving, riding a bike, watching TV, taking a shower, vacuuming. So it's a natural state that we go in and out of all day long. The only difference between that natural occurrence and hypnotherapy in a hypnotherapist's office, or when you listen to a hypnotherapy recording, there are two differences. One is the hypnotherapist is causing you to go into that state by purposely speaking in a slow, monotone way that allows you to relax. And secondly, the hypnotherapist is putting positive suggestions in your mind while you're there. But other than that, it's just a normal state that you would go into anyway. So we're just making use of that state.
Neat. And so, you mentioned recordings, and I know you've created a bunch of recordings that people use and have had success with. What's a good time to listen to those? Like if you have a long commute and stop and go traffic, is that a good time? Or
to avoid hearing from your fellow attorneys, I prefer people do not listen to my hypnosis recordings while operating a motor vehicle, and I've put that at the beginning of all of my hypnosis recordings. Do not play this in a moving vehicle. So A time not to listen to hypnosis would be when you're operating a motor vehicle or doing anything else that requires your attention. The time to listen to them are, as I also say at the beginning of all my recordings, at nighttime when you're going to sleep. Just let it put you to sleep.
Neat. So if you fall asleep when you're listening to the recording, is it still going to work?
Yes. It turns out our eyes close because we have eyelids, but we don't have earlids. So our ears stay open, and that's to monitor our environment for our safety and the safety of our offspring. For example, a mother hears a baby yell, she will immediately wake up. Anyone hears noise in their home that doesn't belong there. It's not part of the baseline noises, like the refrigerator and the air conditioner. It's a window cracking open or a stick breaking or something that doesn't belong in the house at night, some kind of sound that you shouldn't be hearing, you will wake up. And so because of that system whereby you never actually sleep, your hearing is awake all the time because your hearing does not stop working, neither does the recording mechanism. So you may have had dreams where you remember the phone ringing and it was incorporated into your dream, and you wake up and you find out the phone did ring and you actually missed a phone call. So those things happen, they get recorded. Because of that, we're able to take advantage of that during hypnosis, because you will, even if you fall quote unquote asleep, you will still take in and retain all of the information that's being shared during the hypnosis session.
Wow, that's great. And so if somebody goes to, why would somebody go to a hypnotherapist as opposed to listening to recordings in the comfort of their own home, for example?
Well, that varies quite a bit. I mean, some people just like to have the hands-on approach. Not that there'll be any hands-on, because in hypnosis we don't need to put our hands on, but some people just like to show up for an office visit, and they like to see the person they're dealing with, and they like to interact with them, and it feels more real to them. It's so that the type of person who would go to a hypnotherapist would be that type of person who still enjoys that. Maybe that would be maybe an older client would tend to. I haven't seen any studies on this, but my guess would be the demographically older people would prefer that because it seems more real to them, whereas the younger generation would prefer an MP3. So, yeah, I think that it's multifactorial, just like anything else, but I think those might be the highlights as to why someone might choose one over the other.
Nice. So they're equally effective. Whether you go into the office or you listen to the recording, you're getting the same benefit?
I have not seen any. There's a real scarcity of research in hypnosis, so I don't know the answer to that because I don't know if there's any recent data on that, any high-quality data. My own inkling would be that it's better if you go to an office session with a hypnotherapist. You're being more committed. If you get a recording, it'll be customized. Of course, it's a time benefit or cost benefit trade-off. You're probably going to pay more for that. You're going to pay by driving through traffic, by taking time off work potentially, and exposing your inner thoughts to a person. I mean, they're not going to be drawing anything out of you during the hypnosis session, but they are going to be interviewing you and finding out what you want to work on. Whereas with the recording, you download it, it's immediate, low cost, and nobody has to know any of your inner workings, and it's just more efficient.
Right. That's helpful information. And so I know, that hypnotherapy has a broad range of applications. It can help people sleep better, help them reduce stress, as well as, help them change habits, as we were mentioning earlier. And then I've also heard that, it's my understanding, and maybe you can talk a bit more about this too, people can help heal themselves from physical ailments. Is that right?
That is within the realm of possibilities. We don't, for legal reasons and ethical reasons, we don't claim that hypnosis will definitely do that, but there is research showing in various types of manifestations of physical disorders, and predominantly in the psychosomatic realm, where it's you're just thinking that's causing the disorder, that hypnosis does offer a lot of potential.
Wow. And so can you talk a little bit about, what's the difference, if any, between, the hypnotherapy you would do to, say, sleep better versus reduce stress versus quitting a habit?
Let's see. Well, the good thing about hypnosis recordings is at least mine, they all help you sleep better because they're done with my voice, very monotone, relaxing music. They're designed to be listened to as you go to bed at night. So that's an advantage you get from any of them. So you wanted me to compare and contrast that to which other categories? Was it stress and something else?
Yeah, reducing stress or, say, quitting a habit or developing a new habit.
So the protocol for stress reduction is fairly, that's a theme throughout the hypnosis recordings. No matter which ones you get, they're all going to help you relax and give you the tools to relax. They're all going to help you sleep, at least mine, because they're designed to be listened to at night as you go to bed. And then habit reduction, that's where we get into a little bit different territory where we're talking about a little bit of aversion therapy. So, for example, a smoker, we could set the cigarette to be equal to eating liver or something that they usually find distasteful. So in the generic recordings that I sell online, since I don't have the ability to tailor them to everyone's needs, I just tell them to think of something that they find disgusting, that they would never put in their mouth, and to imagine the cigarette being equal to that, so they can fill in the blanks themselves. So that's the way we work. That's one of the ways we work with modifying habits. And then, of course, that compulsion they have to do whatever they're doing needs to be channeled somewhere else. So I also encourage them on my recordings to, whether it's weight loss or stopping smoking or any other kind of negative habit, I encourage them to start following something they actually enjoy that's really productive for them, perhaps some artistic pursuit.
And so these instructions, I get the part, you're reprogramming the thoughts so people think of a cigarette, for example, differently than they did before they started the hypnotherapy. What sort of instructions, would you give, and how does that sort of translate into, say the next day? So someone's going to sleep, they listen to one of your recordings to help them develop a new habit. Like, say they want to get into an exercise routine and they just can't bring themselves to develop that habit. How would you deal with that?
Well, on the recording, my recording for that is called I Love to Exercise, and just talking in the hypnosis programming part, I share with them how they can find an exercise that they enjoy doing, that their doctor has approved, and they can, slowly ease into it, and then it will be enjoyable. You can actually straightforwardly just program the subconscious mind to enjoy things, to assign the feeling of enjoyment to an activity, and then it becomes a matter of repetition before that actually kicks in. So they're also encouraged in the hypnosis session to take on that habit and to stay motivated to do that, and to find a support group that will some sort of habit they can install that will perpetuate that.
And why is it potentially more effective to receive those instructions through, like, the hypnotherapy versus somebody just, sort of, reminding them or them scheduling a reminder on their calendar, exercise, and they get the little reminder? Like, how are the hypnotherapy instructions different than sort of normal instructions?
Well, I think they work well in conjunction with each other. And what you were talking about in the world of hypnotherapy, we would put that into the realm of affirmations. And I also have daytime affirmations that are no hypnosis at all, just me telling you, do this, do that, do the things that you say you want to do. And just, of course, it's more technical than that, but that's the gist of it. So the hypnosis session allows for a much more I'd say, a much more skillful way to reach the subconscious mind, because when you have, at least in my platinum recordings, I have a full half hour of just putting them into the trance state before I'm giving any suggestions for change at all. So with that half hour, I'm able to use a lot of techniques that are common in the world of hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming and life coaching that have been demonstrated to be effective for allowing someone to be more receptive to the programming by accessing their subconscious mind. So it does actually become a more powerful way to cause someone or help someone or facilitate for someone the change that they're looking for.
Right, yeah, because it sounds like basically you kind of get in there and change sort of the running ticker of thoughts a little bit that we don't even consciously have, and
right.
And then it just sort of makes it more natural to do things differently.
Right, you got it.
You are listening to an interview with clinical hypnotherapist Dr. Steve G. Jones. For a free hypnosis download, please visit stevegjones.com.
What are some simple things or daily practices that people can do to immediately start training or retraining their own thoughts?
Well, I think what you mentioned, reminders are good. Of course, we do call those affirmations in what I do, but yeah, just start putting what you want to do on the mirror. If there's something you're after, put it in the mirror, stated positively, stated in the here and now, and stated with an exact number if a number is relevant. I weigh blank. If you want to go from this amount to that amount, then put the goal weight. I weigh blank. That way, what happens in the subconscious mind is eventually your subconscious mind doesn't have the ability to figure out what's true and what's not, and eventually it just accepts it as reality if it's exposed to it enough, and it starts to look for ways in your everyday life to make that happen. So this becomes interesting because now your subconscious mind starts to actively look for ways to help you lose weight. And a lot of that has to do with diet and exercise and getting proper rest and changing around a few other things in your life. And so rather than following a list of instructions at that time, your subconscious mind is now actively seeking out in your environment ways to make that happen.
So is that kind of like activating the law of attraction?
Yeah, as my good friend Dr. Joe Vitale would say, yes, absolutely. And Joe is also a hypnotherapist like myself, and so he'd be very on board with this approach, I believe. But the law of attraction is the idea that what you put out there, you're going to get back. And we can see that on a very basic level. If we walk around all day smiling, people will smile back at us. They give us what we give to them. If we walk around with a frowny face, they'll probably give us a frowny face back or not even pay attention to us. But we also see that on a macro level. If our life consists of positive meetings and interactions with positive people who are actually doing things and contributing to the world, the more of that we do, the more our life becomes about that. And then there's, of course, the metaphysical aspect, which I'll leave to Dr. Joe Vitale and other people who are much more astute experts on that. But we do see it functioning at many different levels. And yes, I think the law of attraction is a good way to sort of sum up what I'm talking about.
Nice. Yeah, because obviously, some people may have heard a little bit more about that than they've ever heard about hypnotherapy. And what are the differences, or do they work together?
Well, I create programs with Joe all the time. They work very well together. I'd say the difference is, if anything, I think it gets a little technical, and I haven't really thought it through. But just off the cuff, I'd say I mean, on the one hand, we could say a belief in the law of attraction is something that's going to cause hypnosis to work better for you. And scientists would, of course, say that's a placebo effect. Law of attraction practitioners would say, no, that's beyond a placebo effect. It's activating something metaphysical. So the difference is really, it kind of depends on your belief system, and it also depends on a lot of things that we haven't really researched yet, that we don't really have a lot of, numerical data points on yet.
Yeah, so since there isn't a whole lot of research out there for, perhaps some of the more scientifically minded or skeptics that might be listening, can you share some real-life success stories without breaching any confidentialities, of course, just so people can sort of hear, some information?
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the law of attraction, I wrote a book on that with my friend Frank Mangano, and it's called You Can Attract It. We do have some scientific studies in there, but to share with you some personal testimonials from my experience. I had a lady named Jen who wanted to lose 180 pounds. Now, it's not as if she weighed 180 pounds. She was 180 pounds over her ideal weight. So she had a lot of extra weight, and it was extremely unhealthy. When you get into that realm, a lot of medical conditions can start popping up. It's like when people smoke a lot, all kinds of interesting things can happen. So she was definitely heading down that road, and her mom brought her to me to help her lose weight. I was the last stop before suicide. I mean, she really was. She had exhausted every avenue that she and her mom could think of, and she came to me, and I worked with her and saw her for 5 sessions and worked with her on weight loss in person. And didn't hear from her for, I think it was a year or two. Then I got a handwritten letter from her. It was back when people used to write handwritten letters, and might have been the last one ever written. And she said not only was she alive, but she was thriving. She had married the man of her dreams, which in her dream was I believe was a 6'2" architect. That's what she always envisioned as the man of her dreams. And somehow she found him and manifested, we would say, through the law of attraction. And on a practical level, that would be, being able to sort through your environment and sifting through what you want, what you don't want, and you eventually get to what you want. And she also had I believe she had a kid and maybe one on the way, and she had lost a lot of weight, and she was feeling great. So, I mean, it was a wonderful letter, a wonderful, a testimonial, not for me, but for 2 things. One would be human resilience, the idea that she knew that she could bounce back, and she did. She found a way to do it. And secondly, of course, for hypnotherapy, the power that hypnotherapy has to reprogram the mind to start doing what you want it to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. What else? A couple other good ones?
Well, when I had my office in Beverly Hills, I was in the Roxbury Medical Building for about 4 years, and I had the ability to work with a lot of celebrities and a lot of producers and so forth. And a lot of them I'm not allowed to talk about because they haven't given me permission, and the federal HIPAA laws prohibit me from disclosing anything that I don't have permission to. But one producer I remember working with, who did give me permission, as long as I don't mention a name, said, what was he working on? Oh, he was one of these people who he had been on the top of his game, and then he kind of slumped. And he was a producer, so when he would get a movie made, it would be, a big budget movie, $100 million or something crazy like that. And so his cut would be pretty good. And so when he was on the top of his game, he was doing really well. He was producing a lot of movies. And the producer, there are a lot of different types of producers, but this type of producer was the person who went and got the money. And so a very important part of the whole process, you got to have money to make a movie. So he would be well paid when things work out and not paid at all when things didn't work out. So when I met him, things weren't working out at all. So what I did with him is I put him back in touch with the time when he was on top, when he had his mojo, when he was really doing well. And I reminded him of that. And I gave him a way through neurolinguistic programming to anchor himself, as we call it, to feeling the power and the confidence and the pride and the stick-to-itiveness and the ability that he felt when he was on top of his game, when he was winning, when he was getting these movies, when he was making the money. And so the next time he went to a meeting to pitch something, he was able to tap into that through a technique that I shared with him. And so this is something that allowed him to get back on top. So this is... but we can all do that. We don't have to be multi-million-dollar producers to be able to get back on top. We just have to have had a time in our lives when we felt confident and tap into that. Then we can use it ongoingly in the future.
Nice. And is that the technique? I mean, I've been through some NLP trainings, but I'm not a practitioner. Where the anchor, as you mentioned, is when you do some physical movement, sort of ignite all the senses as you're thinking about when you were on top and successful.
Right. I didn't mean to leave it as like a secretive thing that nobody will be able to know about. If you want me to explain the process, I'll be glad to, but you are correct.
Yeah, that would be great. It's just because you'll do a much better job at it than I would, and I definitely want to leave folks with that before we wrap up.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it's a very straightforward process, probably the simplest process in neurolinguistic programming. And that is, and people can do this, now if they're not driving or operating anything, or later on. And all you do is you think of a time in your life when you were on top. You were feeling good. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be the king or queen of the world. It just means you have to have felt good about yourself. Maybe and it's good if it's an instance. It's something that's limited in time. For example, you graduated from college, or, in your case, you graduated from law school, or you helped a little old lady across the street even, or you graduated from kindergarten. It just has to be a time in your life, the more recent, the better, of course, but it has to be a time in your life when you just felt good about yourself. And it doesn't mean that you felt like you could, destroy everyone and conquer the world, because that's not, in my mind, that's not what confidence is. Confidence is an inner calmness and an inner peace that everything is going to be okay, and that you're enough, and that you have the resources inside to handle whatever comes your way. That's the confidence that we want to tap into. So if people think of a time in their lives when they were that confident, and then all you have to do is remember it and make all the colors and sights and sounds and smells and tastes and any other sensory thing that's associated with that memory really clear in your mind, like a level 10 out of 10. Really crank everything up so you can hear everything clearly, you can smell everything clearly. If there's something to taste, you can taste it clearly. Everything is cranked up to a level 10, super sharp, super crisp, super clear. You're there. And then when you're feeling that at a peak state, as we call it in NLP, you just make the OK sign with your right hand, touching the tip of your right index finger to the tip of your right thumb, and say the word confident to yourself. And then let it go. Let the images go. Let the OK sign go. And the next time you find yourself in a situation, for example, the producer pitching a movie, or someone else doing something else they do that they feel they may have a lot of negative nerves and stress around, just make the OK sign with the right hand and say that word confident before going into it. And then the idea is, just like Pavlov with his dogs, you're anchored to that moment. You're anchored to that event, that memory, that feeling, most importantly, when you were confident. So you have those powers that you can then take into this new situation.
That's great. Thank you for that really great description, which, now people can sort of try it at home, as it were. And because I've experienced it, and I know personally that it works, and it really does have benefits. So I'm so happy that we were able to share that with the folks listening. So Dr. Steve, is there any resource that you can recommend for people who are curious about learning more about these techniques we've been talking about?
Well, you can always check out my website, which is just stevegjones.com, and I have free recording for you there. It also has access to about 250 different topics on hypnosis and also some training in hypnosis. So again, it's just my name, stevegjones.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Steve, for your time and sharing your knowledge. This, I'm sure, has been an eye-opener for some folks and helpful for everyone that's listening. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, Nicole. Thank you.
You are listening to an interview with clinical hypnotherapist Dr. Steve G. Jones. For a free hypnosis download, please visit stevegjones.com.